The reason why you're not happy is because you don't have enough clarity in your life. In this video, I'm going to tell you what clarity is, why you need it, and how to obtain it. See, my name is Dalonzolang. I'm here with Moment of Clarity Wellness, as you can see by the channel name. The goal of this organization is to provide adaptable wellness solutions to anybody and everybody because we believe that everybody and anybody has the potential to be happy. My goal is to provide an adaptable solution that anybody has the potential to pick up and apply to their own life and be happy, see the results. So I think the reason why a lot of people aren't happy is because they lack clarity. And when I say clarity, I mean the most general definition of clarity applied to your life. If you go on Google, clarity is the quality of being coherent or intelligible, or the quality of transparency or purity. So applying that to your own life, if you don't go through life with a sense of transparency with yourself about how you feel about things and what you value, then you're always going to be pursuing things that aren't really authentic to what you actually care about. Like, if you care about going to the league as a kid, you have to practice playing basketball.
We're talking about practice, man.
You know, you have to passionately pursue that. You don't just get to up in one day pick up a ball and go to the league unless you're blessed with the genetics for that. And even still, if you got the genetics, you have to choose to do that, you know? And to make conscious decisions about your life, you need a moment of clarity to define that. A moment of clarity, which is why I named the channel that, is exactly that. It's a moment when you can take a chance in your life to ask yourself, how do I feel? And when you ask yourself, how do you feel? You got to be able to answer that. But there's a reason why a lot of people aren't struggling. A lot of people are struggling to have that moment of clarity and to have that sense of self, you know? A big reason why people are becoming unhappy on an increasing level is because we're dealing with systemic oppression and distorted perceptions on a mass level. So systemic oppressions are social issues, and that's something that requires community to properly address. I'm going to circle back to community later in the video, stick to it. But the whole point of community is that you're not an individual, you know, like you're part of a bigger group. I mean, you are an individual, but you're a part of a bigger group. And your individuality makes that group that much more special and better because there is no other version of you. There is no other way that this group could have you without you being there. So the more that you put into your community, the better that your community is and the more that your community can put out as a result. So distorted perceptions, those are those interpersonal issues. That's the term I'm going to use to describe that. Distorted perceptions, because the way you treat people, it's more of a reflection of how you feel about yourself than how you feel about that person. I tell everybody this all the time. I'm going to say it one more time. The way that you treat people is a reflection of how you feel about yourself more than you feel about that other person. So if you can find it within yourself to treat somebody less than good, then that means that you perceive yourself as the type of person who just doesn't care about strangers, you know? Like, you don't care about treating your common man with a fellow sense of goodwill. And don't get me wrong, it's not like doing good things cause good things to happen to you, just like doing bad things don't necessarily cause bad things to happen to you. It's not that simple. But you're the only one who has to live with your conscience. You know, you're the only one who has to deal with your decisions at the end of the day. And if you're truly happy with the way that you live your life, no one can tell you otherwise with that. Conversely, you can't tell anybody how to respond to the way that you're living your life. If you live your life in a destructive manner and people don't like how that destructiveness affects them, you can't tell them not to be affected by it because now you're infringing upon their wellness, right? But distorted perceptions, those are things that only you can control. Just like how systemic oppression is something that requires a community to change, distorted perceptions requires the individual to change. And when individuals on a mass level change their distorted perceptions, the community starts to change as well. And then systemic oppression starts to change as well. So I'm throwing these terms out a lot. Let me take a minute to break them down. I got my iPad right here to the side as my notes. You know, I'm not really a handwriting guy, even though I do love journaling. As a matter of fact, the Moment of Clarity Wellness Journal, it's a book that I wrote. I typed it because my handwriting is trash. I don't do any journaling by hand. I do it all by typing, and I do all my notes by typing too, you know, so it's not like I got a script right here. I just got some bullet points. So let me explain systemic oppression a little bit more. Systemic oppression, and this term gets a little bit of flack because, you know, with all this political stuff, left versus right, liberal versus conservative, the actual meaning of the words and the terms being used gets lost in the discussion. And with red versus blue trying to prove themselves to be the better side, when in actuality, nobody wins when the democracy feuds. Nobody wins when the family feuds. I was about to say that, but I don't know if they will call each other family. They don't have the same values that you and I do. But they might. They might. Maybe this video gets to the right person in the right office who has that same set of values, and then we can really amplify this. But in due time. I believe everything in due time. I'm rambling. Systemic oppression. Oppression, let's go to Google for the definition. Oppression is prolonged, cruel, or unjust treatment or control. So, mistreatment over an extended period of time. Systemic refers to the word system. A system means that you have a set way of doing things. Systemic oppression is a set way of cruel and unjust treatment or control. The way that this works in society is that the systems that are created to serve people can be tweaked very subtly to serve more people than others, like affirmative action, for example. Did you know affirmative action helps more white women than it does black people statistically? Statistically speaking, when it comes down to utilizing those numbers, it falls onto white women getting the benefit more than black men, black women, or Latinx men, Latinx women, Hispanic. I don't know the proper terminology at this point. Like, again, the labels have changed, but you know the point that I'm making. You know the point that I'm making. The point that I'm making is that when the system is set up like that, it's very much out of your control. And there's no point in dwelling on the things that are out of your control because they take away from your ability to be introspective. But that's also part of the problem, you know, like they're out of your control, so you can't exactly stop yourself from being exposed to it. You know, like black people can't stop themselves from being exposed to racism, but black people can control their response to racism. You know what I mean? You can't control whether you run into a bully or not, but you control whether you end up being a coward or standing up for yourself. Now, whether you get your ass whooped, that's all the roll of the dice. But at the end of the day, if you stand up for yourself, you have the opportunity to see results in that way. You don't see change unless you move in the direction of change. But again, systemic oppression requires community. The only thing that you can do to benefit a community in this way is to manage your own perception of the community and to recognize your role. This is where clarity comes back into the picture. You have to take a moment to ask yourself, how do I feel and how do I show up to this situation? The only person who can control your character is you. Not your mama, not your daddy, not nobody else. It is only you. So if you want to see change in the community, you have to be that change and you have to represent that. The only way that you can be that change is by clearing up your distorted perceptions. Let's explain what a distorted perception is. What is a perception? Google says, a perception is the ability to see, hear, or become aware of something through the senses. So going back to what I said at the beginning, Moment of Clarity Wellness, our goal is to provide adaptable wellness solutions to anybody and everybody. If you have the ability to perceive yourself, you have the ability to be happy. If you have the ability to recognize yourself separate from another person, you have the ability to be happy because you are the only one who can control your perceptions. And I'm saying this as someone who deals with ADHD, social anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation. I am in the best mental state I have ever been in my life. And it's not because things are necessarily going great for me. Things are. Don't get me wrong. I can confidently say and manifesting things are going amazing for me right now. But the biggest reason why things are going amazing for me right now is because I practice what I preach. Like I didn't write a book just to not live by it. Like I actually do these journaling exercises. I actually live by this philosophy of wellness that I started doing these videos to talk about, you know? So I'm not saying all of this to say that I'm right, you're wrong, the way you're living life is incorrect. My goal is to share what I know about wellness, what I've learned from my own experiences, so that you can utilize that information to come up with your own definition on how to be well. That's what a moment of clarity is about. A moment of clarity is about defining what it is for you to be happy. When you ask yourself, how do you feel? You then have to make decisions to achieve that. But the hardest part to achieve that is coming up with the plan. You get what I mean? So, systemic oppression, distorted perceptions. This causes a cycle of dysfunction. Follow me on this. Beliefs form thoughts. Thoughts reinforce beliefs. If you believe something about the situation that's negative, you're going to think negative thoughts about it when it's exposed to you. And you're going to reinforce the pre-existing negative belief that you already had about it, because that's how the brain works. The brain is the fastest and most thorough, efficient supercomputer that exists right now. The problem with that is it's always looking for shortcuts. It's trying to maintain what it already knows, because the goal is survival. And on top of survival, it's happiness. That's the difference between health and wellness. Health is your survival. Wellness is your happiness about survival. Get what I mean? So that cycle of dysfunction, the only way that you can break it is recognizing the power you have at both parts of the process, the beliefs and the thoughts. You have to recognize your thoughts in the moment so that you can consciously produce thoughts that align with the beliefs that you want to have. Inversely, you have to recognize the negative beliefs that you have about a situation so that you can prevent those negative thoughts from automatically forming. You know, and you can only do that by having a moment of clarity. You can only do that by taking a minute to separate all the stresses from life from you in this moment and just asking yourself, how do I feel? It's simple. That's it. That's all you need to be happy. You just need more moments of clarity. Happiness is subjective, okay? No one can tell you what happiness is. It's not going to be the same for you that it is for me, but that's the point. That's the beauty of life. I got some good drink in my cup. I'm not going to tell you what it is because, that requires brand sponsorships. As a matter of fact, I'm going to tear the label off that water bottle. I hope you didn't see it. But if you did see it, I know a brand representative from the company is going to see it. What's your stance on wellness? What's your stance on wellness? If you have a good stance on wellness, we can work together. But again, it's subjective. I don't expect your stance, Mr. Brand Representative, to be the same as my stance. I look for where we find co-alignment, because it's like what I'm saying about happiness. The definition of happiness is subjective. I mean, I did say earlier, wellness is how happy you are about survival. So why wouldn't wellness be subjective as well? So the reason why I'm so big on pushing wellness and happiness as these subjective things is because I look at it from an Adlerian lens. If you don't know who Alfred Adler is, take some time to look him up. I recommend that you read the Courage to be Disliked and The Courage to Be Happy. It's a 2-part book series. I don't remember who the author is, but it's a great book. It is a great introduction to Adlerian psychology and just a different way of perceiving trauma as a whole, you know, because Adler is so focused on individual determinism, in a sense. The ability to determine what you want for yourself as an individual and to therefore pursue it. You know, his whole idea is that human beings, we have this sense of inferiority and this sense of superiority because there's this constant desire to quote unquote improve. Improving is simply doing better than what we had. And doing better is totally based off perception, because once people get to a point where they're content, it becomes more about maintaining it. So your definition for happiness, it doesn't have to be at the same scale as mine. We don't have to do it on the same set of metrics. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need $1 billion to be happy. I plan on getting $1 billion. I plan on putting the work in for $1 billion. But I don't need $1 billion to be happy. I have happiness that extends far past any amount of billions. So when I do get that $1 billion, I felt it already. Like I've felt it already. I've allowed myself to feel that already. Because my joy isn't dependent on that. You know? But again, I can't tell you to not be happy until you have $1 billion. If you choose not to be happy until you make $1 billion, more power to you. I sincerely hope that you make all that money. I hope that you don't end up like all these other bitter billionaires out there. Like, can you imagine having $1 billion and still being unhappy? Like, imagine being Elon Musk. Like, honestly, like you have $1 billion, but you're still complaining about how people are talking about you on the social media app that you went out of your way to buy. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy. The amount of insecurity that you see from people who are in these like super high up positions, it's totally perception based. You know what I mean? Like, you have no idea what they have going on behind the scenes. You have no idea what issues they're facing in their own lives, but you're perceiving them at a higher level to you. And you're perceiving your own happiness as unobtainable because in your mind, there are people who are already on the level that you're aiming to be at, and you're not there. And you only have those thoughts when you don't give yourself clarity. Like, when you ask yourself how you feel, stop and ask yourself that, like, why does this thing upset me? Honestly. Why does this thing upset me? See, the idea of thinking about your own thoughts like this is also called mindfulness. You know, being aware of yourself, being aware of how you're treating yourself and how you're treating others, and the effect that it has on you. It's very difficult to be mindful in this generation because there is so much stimulating us. YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. The world went crazy when TikTok got banned for 14 hours. I have TikTok on my phone. I was opening and closing the app because I couldn't believe it. I'm not going to lie. I'm never going to lie to y'all. I'm not going to put myself up here as a mental health and wellness consultant, as a person aiming to be a therapist and aiming to be a psychologist by academic discipline. I'm never going to put myself up here and act like I'm perfect. Like, this drink has liquor in it. Like, it's freaking 10:12 when I'm recording this. It's 10:12 p.m. at night. You know what I mean? Like, I procrastinated a little bit with this video. I'm human, just like you. And that's okay. That's okay. It is okay. Like, it is okay to not be exactly where you're aiming to be, because that's the beauty of the journey. Another thing that I've been saying more often, I can't remember where I first heard it. If any of you in the comments know who said this recently, please let me know. But I'm so frustrated that I can't remember. But the phrase is this: the man who loves walking will go further than the man who loves his destination. The man who loves walking will go further than the man who loves his destination. What that saying means is that the man who loves the act of doing the work gets further than the man who loves the act of receiving the reward. Because if you love doing the work, it doesn't matter what the reward is. The work is the reward. Being able to do more of the work is the reward. And the benefits that you reap from that, those are just the toppings. That ain't the cake. That's the cherries. That's the frosting. That's what makes it so sweet. Because it's extra on top of doing what you love. So it's okay for your definition of happiness to be different from your mother's definition or your father's definition. You can't live your life for other people's happiness. You can only live it for yours. And if you try living your life for someone else's happiness, you're living a life of distorted perceptions. And you're allowing these systems of family, of friendship, of community, of school, of your job, you're allowing these systems to oppress you. And it happens to all of us. It doesn't just happen to black people. It doesn't just happen to minorities. It happens to the majority. It happens to white people too. All right? Systemic oppression it's a concept. You know what I mean? And that's the problem. We don't discuss concepts enough and expand them to greater definitions of life. But that's my job as a psychologist. I study human behavior. I believe that human behavior is the foundation of human society. And the more that I study, the more that I learn, the more that I love to share with y'all. So, okay. Happiness is subjective. You need moments of clarity to define what happiness is. Now that you've defined what happiness is, what do? The hardest part to being happy is coming up with the definition. The hardest part to reaching the results of a plan is actually having the plan. Executing is the easy part. You just need a plan to hold you accountable. So here are the steps. I got 4 steps that I wrote down. Step 1, what makes you happy? Step 2, why aren't you currently doing that? Step 3, how would you feel to be doing that? Step 4, what can you do right now to get closer to be doing that? Let me break those steps down for you. What makes you happy? What makes you happy? What makes you happy? I'm saying it so many times because I want you to really think and I want you to really be honest with yourself. I'll be real about some of the things that make me happy. I like playing video games. I like enjoying a nice drink. I like to roll up and enjoy a nice smoke. I like to go outside and enjoy some time with my friends. I like to be myself. I like to listen to hip hop music Monday through Saturday, and I like to go to church on Sunday. I like to have fun, okay? And I'm not ashamed of that. I like to spend time with my family. I like to spend time with my kids. I like to spend time taking care of my grandmother. I like to spend time doing things that are authentic to me. And it feels good. These are things that make me feel good about myself. That's what makes me happy. And I have other things that make me happy too. I'm happy about following my dreams. I want to do stuff like this. I want to make more content like this. I want to build a community based around this niche of content, wellness-based content. I want to do my own stuff as a content creator, exploring like skits and streaming and just doing stuff that's totally kind of paradoxical to this whole like mental health and wellness consultant image that you see on this channel. But that's what makes me happy. Fleshing that out and seeing that vision come to life, that's what makes me happy. Getting in shape, that's what makes me happy. Going to the gym, that's what makes me happy. Like, I'm enjoying, I used to be a fat ass. All right? I used to be fat in high school. But I started when the moment that I enjoyed getting healthy and adding healthy behavior to my life, that's when I started to see the change. And I didn't realize that when I first started going to the gym. because it didn't make me happy at first. Like, I was doing it because I was sad being fat, which a lot of people are. But when it made me happy to be healthy, it was harder for me to not go to the gym. Like, it's harder for me not to be consistent. It's harder for me not to eat healthy. You get what I mean? You have to learn to love it. You have to learn what makes you happy. You have to ask yourself, you have to define that for yourself, and you have to be clear so that you know what you're planning towards. Now, step 2, why aren't you currently doing that? What is stopping you right now from taking the first step to the things that make you happy? What's stopping you? What's stopping you from going to the gym? What's stopping you from going back to school? What's stopping you from getting that job? What's stopping you from starting that business? Don't be afraid of it. Call it out. Call it out. Call it out. Because sometimes it's as simple as not having the confidence. Sometimes it's as simple as not trusting yourself. I don't trust myself enough to get this done. I don't think I'm capable. I don't think that I have the ability to put out good content. I don't think that my voice carries anything. That's real. That's real. Or maybe it's money. I don't have the money for this. I'm broke. I don't have the money to follow my dreams. That's real too. But if you can say that, if you can recognize that, then you can perceive it. Like, that's what it is. You're perceiving the wall. Now that you've perceived the wall, perceive a way around it. Like, think, allow yourself to visualize. Can I go over it? Can I go underneath it? Can I go around it? Can I break right through this motherfucker? Don't let yourself be blocked by things that you perceive. If you can perceive it, you can get around it. It's just as simple as that. It is just as simple as that. So why aren't you currently doing that? Recognize the walls. So step 1, what makes you happy? Step 2, why aren't you currently doing that? Step 3, how would you feel to be doing that? How would you feel to be doing the things that make you happy? This is what I mean when I say that you have to allow yourself to feel the feeling before you have the results. You know, the man who loves walking goes further than a man who loves his destination. How would it feel for you to be at your destination? Can you imagine that? Can you think about that for a second? No, you probably can't, because you've been going through so much bullshit that you've lost the ability to daydream and to imagine and to visualize. But don't worry, I got a self-care method for that. I talk about it in the book, Moment of Clarity Wellness Journal. I'll tell you what it is. It's journaling. This book talks about it more right now. Right now I'm talking to you about clarity, but I will give you another video on journaling. I promise. The point that I'm trying to make is that let yourself dream again. Let your joy come back to you. Let that spark come back to you. Ask yourself, how would it feel to be following my dreams, to be doing the things that would make me happy? Because you've identified the wall. You've identified what makes you happy. Now you know what you believe would come from that situation. When you know what you believe, the feelings follow. When you know what you believe about a situation, the feelings will follow as you're following through. So step 4, what can I do right now to get closer to that, is the follow through. These are the small actions that allow for those feelings to come. You will feel the joy about your result before you reach it. That's why it's hard to stay consistent, because triumph and disaster, they're the same thing. You have to meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters all the same. They're the same thing. If you fail, you have to respond the same way. If you succeed, you have to respond the same way. You have to love the work and continue doing the work so that you can consistently and constantly improve. It doesn't matter if you fail. It doesn't matter if you succeed. Because either way, if you're trying to get better at what you're doing, you have to keep doing it. You can't stop doing it. You have to keep doing it. Repetition, drills. If you played sports, if you if you're trying to hit the layup, you have to hit the same layup over and over again. You have to learn what your shots are. You have to learn the plays that you're running. You have to learn the formation to get in. I don't know cheerleading terms, but you get what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying with that. What makes you happy? Why aren't you currently doing that? How would I feel to be doing that? And what can I do right now to be closer to that? That's all it takes to be happy. You don't need all of this crazy self-help guru stuff to be happy unless it helps you change your perception. That's it. Because all you have to do is change your perception. And then once you change your perception, give yourself a moment of clarity and ask yourself what makes you happy. Once you know that, create a plan to pursue it and pursue it, regardless of success or failure. Just keep going forward. And that's our first moment of clarity, folks. I'll catch you next time.